It's the Happy Families podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
The culture matters so much, the fit and the philosophy matters so much. And if we're only looking at results to the exclusion of other things that matter much more, I think we may potentially be making mistakes with the school choices that we're making for our kids.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
At this time of the year, a lot of people start thinking about next year. Some people are moving, kids are heading to new schools quite often. And whether your child is moving into high school or just going to a new school, so my parents used to, before they retired, own a furniture removal business. And more people move across the Christmas, New Year period than at any other time of the year. It's their boom time. That's when business just went crazy. School teachers, police officers, all the government moves, they all happen at the end of the year, ready for a new year. And I can't believe I'm saying this, like it's the end of August, right? We're only about 3 months away from people having to make the decisions about what's going to happen. And of course, whether you're moving or not, sometimes kids just move up to a new school. Today, a listener question about the very topic of what school do I send my kids to?
Kate asks, is it preferable to send my daughter, 10 years old, currently in grade 5, to the high school that a few of her close friends will attend, or a better, in inverted commas, school out of our area where she'll likely not know anyone or many kids? Just looking into high schools this year and unsure which way to go. Do we involve her in the choice with the tours, etc.? Thanks.
I love questions like this one because I have got a formula. We've got a lot of experience with this, a lot of experience. So I'm going to go through the formula in 30 seconds or less, and then we'll talk about why we have landed where we've landed on this issue. Most parents prefer to send their kids to the schools. If first of all, great privilege if you get to choose the school. Okay, that's a wonderful privilege to have if you can do that. But most parents seem to prefer, if they're sending their child to a school, to look at results, reputation, and resources. You go for the tour of the school, it's got all the bright, shiny classrooms, it's got all the fandangled technology, it's got beautiful green lawns, and you say, ooh, I like this one. And then you go to the next school and they don't have that. And you think, I know which school my kids need to go to. I've got to give them every opportunity in life. So we look at those 3 R's, results, resources, and reputation. There are 3 other words that I think might be more useful in making the decision. And they are fun, friends, and fit, or philosophy with an F instead of a PH. No, fun, friends, and fit, or philosophy. And we can talk about what all of that means, but that's the direction that I'm going to encourage Kate and anyone who's making school decisions for next year into. I'm going to encourage moving away from results, reputation, and resources, unless you've got a really, really, really strong reason for it. I think fun, friends, and fit are going to be much more important.
I know when our kids were younger and we moved to Wollongong, we moved in the middle of the Christmas break.
Yes,
and
like everyone else.
Well, no one's open.
Yeah.
So we were driving around and having a look at schools pretty much from the front gate, trying to make a decision about what school we thought we wanted our kids to go to.
And we were asking people, what do you know about this school? What do you know about that school? What's the reputation of the school? In other words, we were looking at, we didn't look too closely at what was online because back then the My School website wasn't what it is today. And I still wouldn't encourage that at all. But we were looking at resources and reputation, totally superficial and based on what other people said or what we could see.
And I'm going to suggest that resources are a really important part of the decision process.
Oh, and so is reputation. I mean, if you've got a school down the road that has a reputation for lockdowns and knife attacks and terrible culture, then of course it makes sense that you would look elsewhere. That does make sense. However, I still don't think that you can dismiss it out of hand based on fun, friends, and fit. Now, it sounds like fit and philosophy could be a problem with a school like that, and they do exist, unfortunately, but fun and friends matter a tremendous amount. So, in the end, we've moved our children. We have 6 children, and when we were in Wollongong, there was a little bit of movement, but we got some pretty good stability. When we moved to Brisbane, Kylie, across a 5-year period, our children attended 4 schools. We went with reputation for our first choice based on what we'd done in Wollongong. That was a bad move. It did not work. Then we went with resources, results, and reputation. Went to the posh school down the road, which almost crippled us. Like, we could not afford it. It was so expensive, but we did our best. And after 2 years and so much money, we realised the kids aren't even thriving here. What are we putting ourselves through the financial distress for? So then we went for the independent, let's go with the philosophical approach here. We thought we were doing the right thing. It was a disaster. And in the end, the kids went to the local public school down the road. We went through 5 years of hell. And the local public school ended up being the best one for almost every one of our children. There was one that it wasn't quite right for, but the rest of them, that was the right choice.
So I know that you're really pushing us towards this fun, friends and fit philosophy of school choice.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, results, resources and reputation are important. I mean, you've already actually alluded to that.
Yeah, let me talk a bit about each of those. So when it comes to results, it's true that some schools are simply known for academic excellence, or some schools are known for their sporting excellence or their performing arts excellence. In fact, in many states, they have schools that are specifically designed for that. There are centres of excellence, selective schools. Each state has a different name for these schools. And if you have a child who is really oriented in a certain direction, you'll note that these ideas are not mutually exclusive. Like, you can have your fun, your friends and your fit at a school with a great reputation, with wonderful resources and with tremendous results. So if you've got a really sporty kid and there is a school that's viable for you to send them to, that's not the one down the road, but when they get there, even if they don't know anybody, it's such a good fit. They're a sporty kid, they've been the captain of everything, they know how to do it all, and they go to that school, chances are they are going to fit in really well. They're going to make fantastic friends. They're going to have an absolute ball. It's going to be so much fun because the reputation and the results of the school indicate that that's where you do want to go. So it's not like these lists are mutually exclusive. But I do want to talk about it. Sometimes, like if you look at the My School website and you're trying to understand the academic results, you're just looking at results. The results alone tell you nothing about the culture.
Yeah.
And this is the challenge, right? You might think that this is going to be a great school because they've got the academic results, or the kids end up at NIDA, the National Institute of Drama and Art, or whatever it's called, and that's what your child is great at. And then they get to the school and everyone's horrible, or the care factor of the teachers doesn't exist if your child is not a top performer. I want to be sensitive because I don't think that this stuff happens intentionally, but the culture matters so much. The fit and the philosophy matters so much. And if we're only looking at results, if we're looking at the resources and the bright, shiny new buildings and to the exclusion of other things that matter much more, I think we may potentially be making mistakes with the school choices that we're making for our kids.
At one of the schools that our children were at, just after NAPLAN had really started to kind of take hold in our communities, I was friends with one of the mums at school, and she actually received a phone call from the school to say, NAPLAN tests are happening on Friday. We'd prefer it if your son doesn't come.
Yeah.
So, results kind of tell us only part of the story.
Yeah.
And that idea of what the culture is. If results at any cost is part of a school's culture, then I'd really be questioning if that's where I want my child to be. I think about, so often people will say, your mum and dad have done such a great job of raising you. And as an adult, while I recognise the immense efforts that my parents have gone to give me a beautiful start to life and to teach me great values, I sometimes feel like it kind of takes away from the effort that I've individually put in to become the person I am today. And I wonder, when you look at the results, when a school says, we had 15 kids with OP1s, how much of that is the result of the school and how much of that is the result of the kids and just their hard work?
So I've got to jump in. 2017 called and they want their Year 12 results back. Now we have an ATAR, not an OP. But also for people who are not in Queensland, an OP was kind of like your Year 12 results. Okay, so that's just a little bit of an idiosyncratic Kylie thing. But you're right, this idea that some kids they really, really do work hard. Nevertheless, you will generally see a pattern of results over time in most schools. There'll be a school down the road that is constantly excelling and a school up the road that is constantly middle of the road. As parents, we do the very best that we can for our kids, but I really just want to emphasize, if you put your kids where their friends are, they're going to enjoy being at school more. And if they enjoy being at school more, they're probably going to do way better. They're going to learn more. They're going to be more involved, more engaged in the school community, feel like they belong. And Kellyanne Allen, a researcher out of Victoria, has done a whole lot of research showing that school belonging is a tremendously important predictor of how well our kids actually do and how happy they are, their well-being. So I stand by it. Fun, friends, and fit or philosophy are absolutely crucial, but they are not mutually exclusive. You can get results, reputation, and resources at schools where your children have fun, make friends, and feel like they fit. It's just that I would preference the F's over the R's.
So Kate's acknowledged she's got a couple of years to make a decision.
Yeah.
But she wants to know whether or not involving her daughter in that decision process is preferable.
I'm actually curious to know what you think. I don't know of any really strong research that's going to give us a clear yes or no here. I think that it depends, and I'd love to get your take on it, because sometimes giving your kids choice just confuses them and it makes them feel a whole lot of pressure, or they don't want to choose the school that they really want because they know it's going to create financial hardship for us if we've got to pay for it, or they just don't, like, they're kids, they're 11-year-olds. They don't have the information that they need to make the choice. But by the same token, we know that kids tend to do better when they've got a level of volition, choice, and autonomy. We've been through a lot of school change over the years. What do you think? Do you think the kids should have a voice?
In the early years of parenting, especially because there were 6 of them, the idea that they would go anywhere but the one school together didn't even enter my mind. It was a no-brainer.
Yes.
You all go to school. When I was at school, I didn't have a choice. I just went to the local primary school. I walked there, I caught a bus, and then I went to
the local high school.
Yep. Like there wasn't.
Many of our listeners are in exactly that boat, so this won't be relevant to them.
And so for me, the thought that my children would actually get a choice was so foreign.
Yep. And apart from that, it's just convenient. Send them all to the same school. You can hand down the uniforms. Everyone's doing the same thing on the same day. It just makes sense.
But it wasn't until our second daughter found herself in grade 7. We did a big move for them. And it started off with our eldest. She went across and we looked at ourselves and kind of went, what are we doing? If she's going to be here, we really have to make this available to everyone, because it was a great school and it was a really good fit for her. Our daughter, who was going into high school, she was not convinced that this was the right place for her to go. But we decided...
We decided?
We're going to keep the family together.
That's right.
And this is going to be the best decision for you. It took us about 3 terms before we realised that she was literally drowning.
Yeah, not thriving in the slightest. It was a disaster.
And the teachers were acknowledging that as well.
Yep.
And so as much as we had said to her, let's just give it a year.
Because it was a great school with beautiful results, great resources and a wonderful reputation. It was Cedars in Wollongong. For our Wollongong listeners, we love Cedars. We still talk so highly of the school.
And it was a great community.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful community for our family.
Loved it.
And so the plan was that she would see the whole year out. But we realised very quickly just how damaging that was to her.
Yep.
And so we talked to her about it. She said, I just want to be where all my friends are.
Yeah, fun and friends.
And the idea of sending her to the local high school, who did not have a good reputation.
No, it was Fig Tree High. I'm happy to say it. The resources, the results and the reputation were nothing like where she'd been at Cedars.
They'd been in the newspaper a number of times throughout the few years we'd been there.
For reasons that you don't want to be in the newspaper.
And we were really, really nervous.
Yep.
We were really nervous. And yet, giving her that choice, she flourished.
She did.
She absolutely flourished.
Which highlights a couple of things as we wrap up, Kate. Number 1, every child is different. Number 2, every child's experience at a school is different. So your friends might say, oh, that school down the road is amazing. Don't go near the one up the road. And yet you don't listen to them and you go against their advice and your kids flourish and thrive. When I look at the school experience that we had in Brisbane, it was not a good one at all. And yet people were looking at us going, how could you not have had a good experience at that school? It's so good. And then they were looking at us when we put our kids into Shayla Park High School and they were saying, what are you doing? But Dorothea Jensen was a great principal and our daughter who was there just loved it. In fact, even now, she misses that school and speaks so highly of it. So your children ultimately need to have some voice, but as a parent, you make the decision and then you watch. Don't be afraid to change schools if you have to, but also try not to do 4 schools in 5 years. That's not good either.
I just wanted to finish with one last story. So our third daughter found herself going into year 12, and we needed to make a decision about the school because she couldn't go back to the school she was originally attending. And we were doing everything we could to give her autonomy over it. And she finally looked at us one day and she just said, "You need to make the decision because I can't. It's just too big." And so this idea that we can involve our kids in the decision-making process is such an important one, but there will come times for us as parents where we actually just have to step in, sometimes because our child just doesn't have the capacity, whether it be emotionally, mentally or physically at that point in time, but sometimes it might be just because we see the bigger picture. And we've just got to be the big person in the situation to determine when and how much autonomy we give our kids in that choice.
Kate, hope it helps. Plenty of food for thought. Choosing the right school for your kids. There's a lot in it, and it sometimes feels like the stakes are high because in some ways they are. But careful consideration will get you through it. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rowland from Bridge Media. Craig Bruce is our executive producer. For more information about our upcoming Smells Like Teen Spirit Summit with the world's very best adolescent experts, please visit us at our Facebook page, Dr. Justin Coulson's Happy Families, or at happyfamilies.com.au.